Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Polynesian Eyes podcast. Today, we're going to continue our series with Tevita Fale and the series that is called Through Polynesian Eyes. And we'll be discussing in all of these series different topics that Tevita Fale wants to bring up. Today, we're going to be talking about the Tu'i Tonga line that he's developed. And I know we released our last couple of videos with Tevita Fale online. We've gotten a lot of comments, a lot of shares, a lot of discussions online, and we appreciate the support. And even some of the people who are asking questions, we appreciate the questions as well. But with that being said, Dad, what do you want to go through? And let me know when you want to pull something up. But we'll start the discussion.
Yeah, Malolere. We think we talk about the connection between Tonga and Polynesia with Waihi.
Yes.
And there is a very special island or coconut because they used coconut to many places representing the land in the past.
Okay. So you said a very special island, and what is that island that you're referring to?
Rapa Nui.
Rapa Nui. Okay. So that's Easter Island, right?
Yes. They have 6 different names to Rapa Nui because it's very important that coconut between Tonga and Polynesia with Waihi. And I just want to we talk about the land, Polynesian islands, but we don't know, a lot of people don't realize how many thousands of miles between Tonga and Waihi, our motherland.
So this is Easter Island. So I'm just going to zoom out, Dad, just to kind of. This is Rapa Nui. This is the one that you're saying is a very special island to the ancient Polynesians because of its location. And just so you guys can see, here's Central South America right here, and Rapa Nui is right here, and that's literally, I mean, you go from there, and then let's see, French Polynesia is right there to the left. Then there's the Cook Islands. Then you come down to Samoa and Tonga and Fiji. But for all intents and purposes, this eastern island right here is very special. Like you're saying, it has multiple names. So I just wanted to kind of give a visual for the listeners or the viewers.
And they gave many names to that special islands because that's the stepping stone between Polynesia and Waihi.
Okay. So basically, whenever you were going to Waihi from Polynesia, this was like a guaranteed stop. You would stop here on your way to Waihi?
Yeah. And they have 6 different names to Rapa Nui. Rapa Nui, that's what they named the island, Rapa Nui. But in Tongan, they have 6 different names for Rapa Nui. New Tuhuapa, the pointing coconut to the side. Apa means the side. One of the name, New Tuhuapa, the coconut that points side.
Okay.
Side there pointing. Or New Tulu, the edge of the coconut at the edge.
Okay.
New Tulu. And the number 3 names, New Tulu Motu, the coconut the Ad's Coconut Island. And the name Nukuhetulu, the land at the edge.
Okay.
And they have, in Folaha, that's part of Folaha, there's another side of Folaha is Nukuhetulu.
And that's in referencing Easter Island?
Yes.
Okay.
And number 5 names New Tu'uapa, Tapa, the coconuts in the edge or the side. And number 6, New Tu'utaha, one
All by its
standing
own.
coconut.
Okay.
That is one island standing over there. That's see, I want the listeners to listen how far, because we talk about name of land, but we don't know how far.
Yeah.
From Tonga to Waihi, our motherland is 6,540 miles between Tonga and Waihi.
Mm.
I just want the listener to know how far it is. Tonga to Hawaii, that's 3,051 miles. That's a long way.
Mm-hmm.
From Tonga to Tahiti, 1,679 miles.
Yeah.
From Tonga to Easter Island is 4,124 miles. From Tonga to Rarotonga is 993 miles. From Tonga to Lotuma, 469 miles, the same thing to Lotuma and Futuna. From Tonga to Samoa, 551, almost 52 miles between Tonga and Samoa.
So basically, when we say Waihi as the faraway land, and we know that the Tu'i Tongas were marrying to Hawaii and to other islands, Samoa is not a faraway land if it's only 500 miles away.
Yeah. And where the closest one is 341 miles. Fiji, 474 miles. But when you hear all the stories how they travel back and forth, it's like going to America today on a plane and come back.
Mm-hmm.
I just want the listener to realize how far our people travel.
Yeah.
And they name all these different names to Rapa Nui, the Palangi, name it the Rapa Nui. We have 6 different names to that island. That's how important that island
was.
Yeah. See, from Waihi to Rapa Nui, it was far too.
Yeah.
Waihi,
I wanna ask you this something real quick, Dad, and I want to share this screen. What is Rapa Nui? Is that I'm looking at something here real quick. I just did a quick search for the name Rapa Nui, and the traditional names for Rapa Nui. These are the traditional names, and that is Te Pito o Te Honua, translates as the center of the world or the end of the land, which is very similar to a lot of the definitions that you're giving for the ancient Tongan names for Easter Island, right? Because you're saying here it's like the center, the navel of the world, meaning that was like the middle point or the last stop. The first leg was completed to Easter Island, then you finish the last leg to go to Waihi, and then the other one is the end of the land, which is the last land, before you get to Waihi.
Yeah, I just want people to realize
How far?
how far our people travel. That's why a lot of historian the Palangi don't believe our people story is coming from Waihi.
Yeah. They say it's too far.
Yes, but I believe our people. That's why they name all these islands to Waihi. They know what they are talking about. That's why maybe that's why I was sick in my brain to keep working because the foreigners and the educated don't believe that.
I want to share another picture for you, Dad, just because I think this is an important thing. We did mention this on a separate episode that we did, but I think it's important just to let people understand as to how and why. This is a picture, obviously, Dad, of a sketch that someone did while visiting Tonga, right? And
Yeah,
and just to put into perspective, we don't even know if this is the largest kalia that ever existed, but just look for this one alone. Just look at the size of it. These are looks like two adults, right? That are sitting.
yeah,
So just look at these two human beings, adult human beings, and it gives you a little bit of a scale of the size of these ships. Um, and that's and that I'm almost for sure there could have been much larger ones than these. Um, but yeah, I mean, this is something that's really unusual technology, and this is why the long distance travel was so possible.
see, the biggest career in our history that they call it Lombi Peao.
Mm.
When you look at that Kalia here, what about the Lombiao? How big it is?
And just to go along with this topic before we continue the other part, Dad, I was listening to someone share that they were saying a lot of the stones that were used for the langis and stuff were not even from Tonga. That some of these stones were brought from like Uvea and Wallace Futuna area, and some of these stones were on boats. Are you aware of any of that? Or
That's what the story talk about.
so there's an oral history that says that.
Yeah, and that's why they said the Lombiao bring a lot of the
Okay,
stone.
that's why they had to do that was the purpose behind the Lumpiao was to transport a lot of these stones.
Yeah, and Tonga, it's not a lot of stone around in Tonga, but all the langis, the stone they bring to build the langi, that's what they wish. Look at the story, this, the langis, eh?
Yeah.
But the main thing we have to focus on our history because a lot of people don't think how people can do what they did.
Because we're looking at these rocks, they're like what, 10 to 20 tons each?
Yes,
And you bring them from hundreds, possibly thousands of miles away. That's that's something that we have a hard time doing today. It's difficult to move something that big today, let alone back 1,000 years ago.
yeah, that's why a lot of people like the Hamonga Maui.
Mm,
Eh?
yeah.
I believe our people know what they were doing. And when they want to do something, look at that stone.
Yeah. So we're saying that this is probably imported stone hundreds to thousands of miles away. That's crazy.
I don't know how they did it, but it's done.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of stuff people don't know, just like some of the ruins in the Americas and in Egypt. No one seems to know how this work was done. But like you said, we can't deny we see it in front of us. Somehow they did it.
And that's why I kind of mention thousands of miles they travel.
Yeah.
When you think about it, when we talk about they go to Samoa, Fiji, and another thing, look at the Tu'i. You guys kind of mentioned about Tu'i.
Hmm.
She is a Nua from Hawaii.
His mother.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's 3,000
Miles
miles
away.
from there.
And I think this is something that I think that's important for as we have these conversations, is that because of colonization, we now think of Hawaii as a separate nation, Samoa as a separate nation, Tahiti. But the reality is, during the Tu'i Tonga Empire, it was all one country. It was one nation. And that's why they were traveling amongst each other so much. And it's millions of square miles. If you were to put that country today, it would be the largest country in the world today. But too many times, I think and I don't know if it's because we just grew up after, colonization, and now Samoa is its own country, and Tahiti and Hawaii and all these other islands. But in the past, these were all one nation. They all had their names for the individual islands, but they were, for all intents and purposes, one nation under the Tu'i Tonga. Is that a fair description, or is there something that I'm missing there?
Yeah, because like I said, Tu'itatu's mother
It's from Hawaii.
from Hawaii. And something you guys talk about in the last program, one program before, about the incest.
Yeah.
That's what the problem is. It was not bad in Hawaii, but I think Noah's older son, that's the same thing happened to her. That's why she wanted to do the same thing to Fatafehi, his sister. But our people don't talk much about it because it was taboo in our culture.
Mm-hmm. And that's really important, because there are certain academics right now that are trying to say that the incest was the norm in our culture, but that was not. Because, as we watched some of the videos that were presented by some of the professors and the doctors on Pacific history or Polynesian history, they said that that was a normal practice in Tonga, but that is incorrect.
No, it's still known in our history.
Mm-hmm.
The Falefa didn't like what happened.
Yeah.
And that's why they have a tapu. It's different today. We have a big house in the rooms. But
Mm-hmm.
remember yesterday, it was only a Wharetonga, small
Yeah.
place.
Yeah.
But it's known in our history how Tu'i did to his sister. It's in
And
our oral history.
yeah.
She said, that's a boat, and she come up. And that's how he raped her. But the mothers, that's the tradition from Hawaii. She came
Okay.
with.
So I know we've kind of addressed some of those comments and ideas there. Now, you wanted to spend time looking and comparing the Tu'i Tonga list that you put together. Did you want to look at that, or did you want to, now that we understand our ancestors were traveling thousands and thousands of miles away, which is that's one thing to do, right? To be able to travel thousands of miles away. It is another thing to be able to move product that are tons, 10 to 20 metric tons. These are massive things. So we're not just moving people, we are moving cargo, we are moving animals, we are moving large rocks for construction. So it's not just, and that's, I think, what makes it even more unique is we're not just sailing back and forth, just people, which is already impressive, but we're moving large amounts of cargo throughout the empire. And that's something that's impressive.
Another thing I remember in our history, Paipao Terea, remember the two brothers,
Yes.
Tongaoneone and Terea, their mothers both from Hamoa.
Yeah.
And their first cousins. And Paipao Terea were any time where the engineer was built by the Samoan in our history. That's one thing the Samoan don't like it to hear that, but our culture and we have to be proud of what our people did.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember first missionary come to Tonga. They pick up two guys from Tahiti. They came together to Tonga. They are trying to get to Fiji.
Mm-hmm.
And the two Tahitian, Hape and Tafeta. And is someone, they write it, missionaries didn't like Tafeta.
Why?
Because he doesn't do anything. But Hape do everything. But Tafeta, see, he was a noble person from Tahiti.
From Tahiti.
It was in 1797 when they were in Tonga. Tu'i's name is Tafeta. He was naming from
After Tu'i.
around 1080. That's when the Tu'i time. See how long
The
they
name.
used the name, and he didn't do anything because he's a noble.
Okay. So wow, so what we're saying is that is the connection, that there is a connection between Tu'i, obviously his royal blood. So maybe some of his descendants were, kept that name, or they recognized that name in Tahiti because of Tu'i's time as ruler of the Tu'i Tonga.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. When you think about, that's why I said Hawaii, Tahiti, all the islands, when a noble person from a chief over there have a beautiful daughter, they bring it to Tonga, to the Tu'i Tonga, for them to have someone from their daughters to have son or daughter with the Tu'i Tonga. And when they go home, they are on the top of their country.
Because of the royal blood that they would have.
Yeah. That's why I was surprised when the missionaries at LMS recorded, they didn't like Tafeta because he didn't do anything, only Hape do all the work.
Do all the work. Very interesting.
So almost 800 years between
Tu'i
and that name.
Do you want to take a look at the Tu'i Tonga line? You want me to bring that up?
Yeah.
Yes.
You were joking about Hikule'o. Send me to America at the last program.
Yes.
But I believe that why I was that stupid to do that work all these years, spend money, but I didn't get any money. I hope we find some fund somewhere to publish all my work. But when you look at our history, no academic person going to go and do that, spend his time and money and everything to do that for free.
No, it's a life commitment. It is definitely a life commitment, and it's not an easy road. I can definitely confirm that it is not an easy road to take. So, just gonna expand this just a little bit. So, just some description here. So, the first one we have is the Catholic list, right? And it starts with Aho Etu at approximately 950 AD, and it runs down. There's 39 through Tu'i Tonga. Then we have Baker's list, and it has Kohai and Koau before Aho Etu. Then it comes down all the way to Tu'i Tonga with 48. And then we have your list that starts with Aho Etu at approximately 450 AD, and you have 54 Tu'i Tongas listed there. Anything in specific you want to touch or kind of discuss on the differences in the list and how you came up with the list? And some of the errors you may have seen on the Catholic and Baker's list.
Yeah, and when I look at the list, Catholic list is kind of short, and Baker's list, there's some name miss in either side.
Okay.
And that's why I work on it. I was traced the settlement and come down to 6 different settlements. Last settlement in our hometown in Moa.
Okay. And I'll pull up that settlement here just to look at real quick. And so here are the 6 settlements. Want to walk through the first one. So this one right here is where we said Tangaloa lived, right? In Lotolangi.
Yeah.
And what's number 1 here? I'm assuming that's where Aho Etu started, and what's the history behind
That's
there?
where they said they call Tonga.
So this was called Tonga. This was named Tonga from the moment Aho Etu went there.
Yeah. And it was a title in Tonga in 4. The title, it's the name is Fehoko Nahau.
Okay.
Fehoko Nahau means a king, his home still named after him, even today.
Mm.
And that's what I used to trace all the settlement. It was the first Hifo from Langi. That's where they have where they get where Tangaloa live.
From here?
Yeah, the A.
Yeah.
They didn't call it Langi, but the name they use place, they call it Tapuhia.
Tapuhia. That's
Means,
like forbidden.
Yeah. No criminals or anything. No. That's the highest place over there. Now is the hole because they use all the
rock
for Tongan's road. And they moved from Tapuhia. That's Tapuhia. They have a place over there. They call it Toa. In a place called Fetoa. That's where the mother tell Aho Etu like a whanga place, name place to go to where his father lived. And it was only Tu'i Tonga was living in Tonga.
In this settlement
Number
right
one.
here,
Yeah.
number one.
And
I have and what was this place called? It was called Tonga.
yeah.
I have a question. So I did get tagged today on TikTok and I'm assuming this is where a lot of the Samoans are. And I wanted to know if you had read this. I hadn't read it before, but I'm skimming through it. That there were missionaries from either from Lalo Tonga, from Rarotonga, who happened to be in Tonga, and they asked questions about someone named Ruatonga in Rarotonga, and then they heard a story, or at least someone named Fatafehi told them that the name Tonga comes from, and then came from Samoa, and he told them a story about Maui who went to Samoa to the Tu'i Manua to get a hook to pull up land, and they first met the Tu'i Manua, or Tonga Fusifonua's name or wife, and she told them the secret of which hook to get. And when Tonga Fusifonua came back, said they could pick a hook, and they picked the hook that would allow them to pull up land, and then they came back and pulled land up. And the only thing that Tonga Fusifonua asked Maui was to name the land after him, which was Tonga. So now that we're talking about the first settlement of Tonga named Tonga, are you familiar with that story, and where does the name Tonga come from?
From the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
because Tonga, remember when they come from Maui and Tangaloa, there's no other place in Samoa or Polynesia know where Maui and Tangaloa come from.
Correct. In this story that they were told supposedly by a Tongan, they said that Maui was the spirit and Tangaloa was the god. And so they don't know where Tangaloa and Maui come from, even in that story.
When I was giving permission to work for Tongan history by His Majesty to Paul IV,
Mm-hmm.
I have to find where Tangaloa and Maui come from. I look at Southeast Asia where they said we come from. There's no connection over there.
Mm-hmm.
But our people said we come from Waihi all these years. Waihi name and Maui name and Tangaloa come together from Waihi. And when they first found Tonga, they know Tonga is in the south. That's why they named Tonga Tonga Tapu, the secret of the south. And that's the problem with all our history in Polynesia. That's come always, that's why a lot of educated people said, that's a lie. The Whananga and Whakapunake and they said we come from Samoa. How Samoa get the name Maui and Tangaloa? Maui and Tangaloa, they come with the knowledge of navigation and king title.
The political and government structure of kings.
And another thing, Now I remember about the priest. It was a priest in Moa, the Tu'i Tonga's priest, who raised Tafa'ahau.
Yeah, that's where that Taufa Ahau's name comes from.
Yet his home is Ahau. Let's
Hmm.
go back to America, the Ahau name. And when he get older, he grow up in Moa and know all the tradition, and he respect the Tu'i Tonga and everything over there. Tafa'ahau. He know the tradition. And I believe there is a reason why he was grew up over there. Hikule'o want him
To
to
get ready.
face,
Yeah.
he prepared to get ready to face uh, the foreigners. And they move from Tu'i Tonga because it's too small to the second
So yeah.
place.
So they left here, and why is it called? So it was first called Tonga, but
Yeah,
when they left, the name changed, right?
yes,
So it went
Tu'i
from Tonga
Tonga.
to Tu'i Tonga.
They left Tonga to Tariki Tonga. That's second.
So this area right here, this second settlement right here, number 2,
Yeah,
that's Tariki Tonga right there.
yeah.
Why did they? So they moved to get more space, more open, and obviously they're getting closer to Lolofonua, where Maui settled and where Maui was.
Like I said, the first Tu'i Tonga was uh, the first Tu'i Tonga. Two Tu'i Tonga live in Tonga.
So 2 generations in Tonga.
Yes, from 450. In some other historians said 950. But after I traced all the uh, Tu'i Tonga settlement, that's why I push it back to 450. And they moved from there, from Tu'i Tonga live in Tonga, and they left Tu'i Tonga, now moved to Tariki Tonga. They have not long, and they moved to Toloa area,
And
number
that's number
3,
3.
and they moved back to New Toa. That's where the Hamonga at. Eh?
Okay.
And I believe the Hamonga built way before they moved to Tuidatu and move over there.
So you're
Eh,
saying, when do you think the Ha'amonga was built then? Was that during Tangaloa's reign? Before the Tu'i Tongas, or at the very beginning of the Tu'i Tonga to the end of Tangaloa?
The Tangaloa, yeah,
Okay.
in at Maui and Tangaloa stand when they built Hamonga.
So
So
shortly before Aho'etu's time, that's when the Ha'amonga was built.
maybe before then,
Okay.
because the knowledge comes from
Yes.
Waihi. They didn't come up with the knowledge to build Hamonga.
Well, and that's actually one of my criticisms of, that story that I brought up earlier, where they said they went to the Tu'i Manua to get the knowledge, to get the hook, right, to pull up Tonga, and that's one of my criticisms is, traditionally, yes, Maui's hook is the constellation in the sky that helps the navigation. You wouldn't be able to navigate and find Samoa and Fiji and Tahiti, and the knowledge was existing before, because you cannot go out and not know the knowledge. If you go long distance without the knowledge, you're not coming back. you're gonna go you're gonna go die out in the ocean. And that's actually one of my criticisms of that story, um is the knowledge of navigation, which, number one, Maui was the one who held that knowledge. He didn't go and get that knowledge from somewhere in the Pacific. He came with that knowledge from a different place. So yeah, I could definitely see the possibility of the Ha'amonga being much, much older because, like you said, that knowledge is thousands of years older and back into the to Vaihi. So they go
Uh,
from what real quick question, Dad. So this was Tonga. When they left was called Tu'i Tonga, and then they went to Tariki Tonga, right? And
yeah,
then they went to was the third one Toloa? Was that the name of this settlement, or does it have a different name, or is it just referenced as Toloa?
that's where Toloa at.
Okay.
I have the name, and they move to number 4.
Mm-hmm.
That's where
Tu'i was.
Tu'i at, and his son Talatama moved it from there to number 5. Eh?
The
Eh,
Nukureka area.
yeah, and when he died, he doesn't have a son, and they name his bureau a
Is
piece of
Pillow
wood,
the
piece of
yes.
wood, because they want Talahapepe to be the king, and Talahapepe said, "No, our tradition has come from father to son," and that's why someone come up with
The idea.
the idea. And see, the Wharewa already start from Tonga,
Mm-hmm.
eh? And they move to Tukutonga. The Wharewa is already there. And Tu'i Whareua, that's the oldest one.
Yeah, that was a question that came up. What's the history of the Tu'i Whareua or the Whareua and his relationship to Aho'eitu?
He's the oldest brother.
He's Aho'eitu's oldest brother.
Yeah,
And
and
and and is Whareua just his name or title, or
that's
that's
the
just a
title,
reference to
Tu'i
him? Okay.
Whareua.
Okay.
The first one is Ao'itu, the youngest one, and Tu'i
Mm-hmm.
Whareua, and 4 brothers, they were the 4 Wharewa. We'll start from then.
Okay. So Aho'eitu's oldest brother was not part of the Falefa. He remained separate.
Yeah, the Tu'i Whareua. That is.
Okay.
Talaiha Pepe don't want to be the Tu'i Tonga, and they make his bureau, New Tamato, the piece of wood, to be the
And that
king.
happened here at 5.
Yeah, you're right. At 5.
At 5.
Yeah. And after they make a wedding and have a son, that's Taleha Pepe.
So they did all the ritual and everything because, like you said, what was Talatama died without an heir.
Yeah,
His brother was Talaiha Pepe,
yeah,
and so he said he's not going to take the throne because it's father to son, not brother to brother. So the
yeah.
Falefa or someone came up with the idea: we'll name Talatama's pillow, make him a Tu'i Tonga, and make him
Tu'i Tonga,
uh,
New Tamato.
and that's Tu'i Tonga New Tamato, and make him Talaiha Pepe's father, so that
Yeah,
Talaiha Pepe can then be the son of a Tu'i Tonga.
yeah. And Taleha Pepe move it to Whangalongonoa.
And he's the one that moved it here to
Yeah,
6. And we're talking about approximately 2,000 years worth of history happening between these 6 settlements.
yeah. You have to really dive in deep to make our whananga to be alive and be,
To understand it.
yes,
So, if I understand correctly, then what you did was you went to each location and tried to identify the Tu'i Tongas that lived in that area, going through the names of the different areas of the settlements, the langis, the different locations, and try to identify which Tu'i Tongas lived where, and which ones led to the changes in the locations. And then that is what led to this one. So that's how you developed your list, was going through the different settlements, finding the names, finding the archaeological locations of the langis, and the oral history tied to the names and those locations. And are you saying that this is a minimum, right? There's probably, is there a possibility that there are more Tu'i Tongas in between here? But you're saying that this list is the minimum.
Yeah, that's the best I can do.
Come up with. I have a question. Why is it, because Laufiri Tonga was a Catholic, right?
Yeah.
Why did the Catholics not get the right information? Why is theirs the shortest? And one would assume that since Laufiri Tonga was Catholic, or was that just more a political move by Laufiri Tonga, since Taufa'ahau had the Wesleyans? He went to go become a Catholic for political reasons. But one would think that the Tu'i Tonga being part of the Catholic religion would allow them to get more access to the information.
Remember when you talk about only tell the stories from one mouth to another mouth?
Mm-hmm.
That's something I believe when I do the work, it's not complete.
Mm.
It's different if you write it down and someone behind you can write it down. From mouth to mouth, there's a lot of things not correct.
Okay. So this is just, someone saying this is what I remember, but your list has literally gone to the specific settlements over time, combined with, so basically taking our oral history and tying it to the land.
Yeah.
And confirming the timeline of the Tu'i Tongas through that.
Yeah, that's what I did.
Okay. What were some of the was there anything that, so when Tupou the Fourth says, Fale, we need you to do this work. Obviously the country doesn't have the resources to finance you. You're gonna have to, pursue what was, and you go on this journey. What are some of the special experiences that you had, or anything unique that you think, to give the viewers and the listeners an understanding of, this work is not easy work, and it's not all scientific, right? This is a spiritual effort as well. And I think that's something that's unique about the work that you did. Is there anything that you can share that would give the listeners an understanding of how you felt this was your calling? Any help or any unique experiences or any knowledge that surprised you? Just anything that would kind of give the listener an understanding of, how you were able to do this, because this is not easy. And it's very difficult, not only from a financial and a time commitment, but even just to get the information itself. Any kind of insight that you can share on that?
I didn't really think about how much time and how much money involved, and that's all I think about today. I was lucky to still have a family. I work hard to raise the family, and the time of traveling and to everything. That's why I believe I was born to do that for our country. No one can do something like that, because anybody to reach it, they have to go dive in to get the fund before they get on the road and follow, try to pick up what they are looking for. I didn't think about that.
You just wanted to go and do the work. I'm I wanna reference a story, and if you, I mean, I can, I want to see how comfortable you are in sharing this. But I remember a story growing up where you were going to go either do a presentation to Poe the Fourth or someone, and Kim kept having a spiritual experience, is what we will call it. She kept having a spiritual experience, and she said it happened the same thing multiple times, and it was someone who kept coming to her in a dream, or she saw, and it was two people, and this individual was like either pointing to a land or a location or something, and basically, you know, I remember moms telling them, like, why are you guys coming to me? Go and talk to him. I have nothing to do with your guys' stuff. But they said that, for whatever reason, they couldn't get your attention at that time. But do you remember that story, Dad? And can you kind of give what that story is and any other unique experiences similar to that helped you? Because I don't think, like you said, if we just look at the money and everything, you shouldn't have been able to do what you did. But because you were, I do believe this, I believe you were called to do this work, there was more help than what the eyes can see. But if you can, do you remember that story about what mom experienced and what was going on at that time? And then if you can share any other story similar to that.
She told me a few times about that story.
Mm-hmm.
And she keeps saying, you guys go to him.
Why are you over here bothering the palangi? This is none of my business.
And I don't know, but it was a few times she told me her dream. She keeps telling them to come to me and tell me.
Because what I remember from it, they were trying to show her something. They weren't really speaking to her, but they were pointing at something. And then eventually she kept bringing it up. And then you ended up, there was a name that you had missed in your presentation to include. And it ended up being that individual from what I remember. And that's the reason why they were over there bothering the palangi.
I think the name was not in my list.
Yes. And that's what I remember. It had something to do with the list that was being put together, and they were there to help her, to tell her to come and remind you about something so that their names could make the list. So really what I'm getting to, and the reason why I think this is important, is some of this stuff is beyond just the scientific world that we see. And I think that's one of the, despite all the many blessings that science brings to us, but science has certain shortcomings and weaknesses. Stuff like our history sometimes requires our ancestors to reach back to us to help us. And without them reaching back to us, science cannot do much to find out about certain parts of our history.
Yeah, I don't remember until you mention it when Kim told them to come to me. Why they come to her?
Mm-hmm.
And finally, I found out, I think it was a couple names. It was missed in my list. But I don't remember the name, but I realized it was two names
Mm-hmm.
was missed in my list. The work, I don't feel like it was really hard. That's why I believe I was born to do the work.
Mm-hmm.
But now, when you in a program, you go through all the names of places and the art I did. I didn't know what I had in my mind to come up with all the design and places I did.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's what happened when you're dumb. You don't know. You, you don't know how hard it is to do this work.
Hmm. No, no, 100%. And let's do any of these kind of unique names, like I know you told me like certain names of these guys are tied to certain achievements in the, like, I know Kaulufonua was when there was a group of the first group of what, 20 islands that were
Yeah.
in
When
the empire. And just are what are some of these, any of these names that have unique aspects of the history that you want to kind of touch on? Like, let's start with Kaulfonua. What's the meaning behind that name?
Kaufonua, it means when you get to 20 countries of the
The empire.
empire, and they come up with the name of Kaufonua. And the same thing, what happened in 12 something in Samoa when they attacked them in Samoa.
What was
And
the name of that Tu'i Tonga?
Talakai Faiki. When the Samoan attacked them in Samoa, because they bring all the puaka, toho, and everything to the pangai.
Mm-hmm.
The puaka was on their belly.
Traditionally.
Yeah. And they hide all their povai, the weapon,
Under the belly.
under the pigs, the omu and everything. But that's how they attack the Tongan, the Tu'i Tonga.
Mm.
And when they come to Tonga, they change the tradition. I can't read the name here. Can you
Zoom in. You want me to zoom in a little bit?
tapu osi talakai faiki. Tapu osi whatawhehi. Havea. Go to talakai faiki raki.
Right there.
Hawakafuhu. And they changed the title after what happened in Samoa.
Which title? What title was changed?
The next Tu'i Tonga. Keep going down to the other.
So this is Talakai Faiki the second. There's a third. Oh, Lomi Aitupua.
Yeah.
So it's this guy right here that happened in Samoa.
Yeah. That's happened, and that's the Talakai Faiki.
Why did they change the name?
Lomi Aitupua, that's a Tukfaholo, eh? And his son is Talafapite. It means they tend the Tala, the tradition. And they make the pigs
Face up,
not on
down.
their, and they put it on the pig's back after the Samoan hide their weapons under the pigs. That's Talafapite.
Okay.
And then Talafapite's son is Makato said everything is clean and clear.
Everything's done. We move on.
Yeah. Yes.
Why did this Kaulfonua the third have the Fekai in his name?
Because after his father Takalawa was killed in Tonga, and he says the two murders.
Oh, is that the one he chased them all the way to Wallace to Futuna?
Futuna anywhere. Eh?
How many mile? How far away is that?
That's Only 460.
Is that Wallace today or Futuna? Futuna still holds its name today, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, 469 miles.
yeah,
So they chased them on the boat.
yes. From island to island and got them over there. And he bring them to Tonga and knocked their teeth off and asked them to sew the cover.
Oh,
And,
geez.
and the blood in the cover,
Hmm.
they drink it. That's why they call him Kaufunufekai. After drink the cover and kill
With the
them, and
blood.
he used their body to be like the pigs. They eat
Jeez.
it.
Wow.
That's
Yeah.
why they call him Kaufunufekai, because what he did.
Yeah, we don't want to be a part of that right now. Um, anyone else here that has kind of a unique story to their name?
Tapuosi, number 43.
Right here.
Yeah, that's his two sons, Telea and Romo. That's where our family, there's no family like our family to have a property from 1500. Eh?
To now.
That's when, yeah, all the way up today, we still have the langi plus the properties
Hmm.
from that time. We are lucky. And I think that's why I got the job to do it, because of our line. For me to do something like that, I didn't think about how hard it is and how much money to spend on it. And I think, and how lucky I am to still have a wife today. Think about that. The
if you
wonder,
were if you were to add up, Dad, hours in the week that you spent over how many years consistently? Let's say at least 1986. How many hours a week do you think you've spent on your research? Just to get, and the reason why I'm asking, just so that people understand, like, this is not something you take part-time, right? You don't just, oh, part-time, I'm gonna do. You've done this for 40 something years now, right?
to me,
How
I don't think so. My whole life. Because I collect all the stories, start when I start to save cover
Mhm.
for the old folks and go to the uh, grade school, see all the
Yeah.
things. And I learned how to do things. Like I said, it was illegal to buy coconut, brown coconut. As when I was 7 or 8, I learned how to already know how to tie the rope,
The horse.
the horse.
No, and then I agree, Dad, that you've been prepared your whole life. I'm just trying to give everyone an understanding of how much time you've spent on it. Just from 1986 to now, approximately 40 years. How many hours a week would you say you spent working on the history?
See, the cover, uh, when I, that's my core, my education from the Kariloa to the cover.
Mm-hmm.
And I cover every night from Sunday to Sunday when I was drinking cover.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think maybe I found your mom, she's stupid enough to trust me. I cover every night.
So let's
And
say,
when I
okay.
go outside, if I am in Hawaii or in Tonga or America, I always go outside and look at the stars.
Yes. Because what I'm trying to get to, Dad, to help everybody understand. So you faikava every night. That's at least 6 hours, right? At least. Then I'm telling you, I remember all the days growing up. You have papers, you're out writing, you're looking at the stars, you're constantly working, you're going places, visiting sites. I don't think 40 hours a week is enough. But if we were just to say, because I think you're probably closer to 60, between 60 and 80 hours a week, it would be kind of a guess I would have of how much time you spent on this. And this is just to give the listeners an understanding of how much time and energy went into this. So if I were to go, let's just be on the very conservative side, 40 hours a week, though it could very much be double that. You times that by 52 weeks in a year. Then you times that by 40 years. At a minimum, you're looking at 83,000 hours. 83,000 hours at a minimum, even though I could say very easily you're over 100,000 hours. And that doesn't include your childhood and everything you've done before, the 1986. But do you know what they say it takes to be an expert at something? That on average, on some of the books, it says you need to do a minimum of 10,000 hours. Minimum 10,000 hours dedicated to doing something is the kind of like they've done some studies and they say if you do something for 10,000 hours, that's the 10,000 hour rule. They say you have at a minimum 10,000 hours to be an expert. Some people may take a little bit more, some people a little bit less. So you've done 8 times as much at the very least, though I think you're well over 100,000. You're well over 10x. But I think this is, I just wanted to bring that up. So as we're looking at these lists, a lot of people may just sit there and say, oh, you came up with a list. Well, good for you and blah, blah, blah. But it's like, no. You have no idea how much time, energy goes into building something like this. And to kind of, to prove a point there, last time you were here in Texas, we went and did photocopies and digital copies of patterns of the sun, patterns of the stars that you had tracked while living in Hawaii over what period of time? Just for that one little exercise, Dad.
More than 10 years ago.
Yeah.
For the whole year, I watched the stars every night and
track them moving around the sky. So that's just one aspect. The reason why I want to bring this up, that is to let people understand, I guarantee you, no one with a PhD in the history of our people has come close to the number of hours, the number of what we'll call them projects, and the level of detail that you've put into it. And that's something that's important. Just like this one in Hawaii, you spent a year tracking these patterns, drawing them down, watching them every night for a whole year. And so when people say, how or where did you get your information? You went to the source. You went and did the work yourself. You didn't go and pull up a different professor who did a study and reference their work or reference another person's study. You went directly to the sky, right? You went directly to the holders of the oral history. You went directly. Sometimes your ancestors came directly to you. And I think this is important for the listeners and the viewers to see is this is why nobody knows these things, because no one was willing to dedicate their life. And I would agree, Dad. You were lucky to find Mom, because I don't know anyone else that would maintain the blessing of a family with you, but also you also brought some unique blessings, because now through your hard work and dedication, you now have a heritage to hand to your descendants for the rest of your posterity forever and ever. So, but it didn't come easy, and it was a lot of sacrifice, and I just wanted to bring that up so that the viewers understand the amount of time and energy that this requires is really, I guarantee you none of these professors, PhD, they have nowhere near the amount of hours you put into it.
And when I work for Geneva Rock,
Uh-huh.
I have my papers on the site in the machine when I have uh, heavy equipment operator.
Yeah.
Now we are talking. I have 6 different papers in front of me. I still work day and night.
Yeah.
And at night, I don't sleep. I don't know how my energy work. All my life, I don't sleep at night. When I about get tired to sleep, that's the little things click in my brain, and the stupid father get up and do it.
Continue to work.
Yeah,
Yeah. And I think that's why I wanted to kind of have that discussion there is you can easily look at this list and say, how hard is it to come up with that? You have no idea, right? And just the best way that I can convey it to the listeners is imagine your job that you go to, because basically a 40-hour week is a job. Though I do believe this, you're more closer to like 60 to 80 hours a week. Imagine doing that for 40 years and not only not getting paid for it, but actually losing money, spending money on it. Then you'll have a small taste of the sacrifice and the amount of work and energy that this took. And that's that, I agree. That's why you were called to do this. Maybe all the ancestors, like, there's only one coconut that is thick and hard-headed enough to do this work. We're gonna call this guy.
see, I mentioned it the last time. I have to put in time to have enough time to have a retirement.
Mhm.
While I'm running the machine, I was doing landscaping in the same time. I have some help. I pay them. And as soon as I get off from Geneva Rock, I go to yard work. But my site in my vehicle, everywhere I have books. I have notes here for about 40 years.
Yeah. And weren't you running experiments as well while you were working? I remember looking at an article once that they had in the Utah newspaper where you had some stakes in the ground. So while you're working the loader, not only do you have papers inside the loader that you're reading in between loading up the dump trucks, but you were also running certain experiments while at work with driving stakes in the ground and tracking the movement of the sun. Does that ring a bell to you? I remember looking at an article that had that in there.
Yeah. And art, I have to design everything. I look at the skies, and I don't know how I did it, but like I said, I don't know what happened in my brain when I make all the design and artwork. I did it all.
Mhm.
You have to be really stupid.
That's
I
the theme. That's the theme today. Really stupid.
Because I don't think about it. It's going to be
Yeah,
hard.
you didn't. Yeah, you didn't realize. Which that's just the way it goes. You know. I'm gonna let's take a look at. So you put together this Tu'i Tonga timeline. It's the longest timeline, and like you said, this is as much as you could get based off of the six settlements of the Tu'i Tonga, looking at their langis, looking at the oral history, taking all those pieces of information together. So I do want to look at another one that you've put together. And just wanted to kind of have you talk through it. What specific parts here that you wanted to talk through? Actually, this one looks better when it's like this. Just kind of talk about and go over this diagram that you put together. Can you see it, or do I need to zoom in a little bit more? Right there.
Yeah, 450 AD.
Yeah. So we're talking about, this is Aho'eitu when he starts, right?
Yeah,
With the Tu'i Tonga right here, and then you're saying Aho'eitu had a older brother, the oldest out of all of them, and he was the Tu'i Fareua, which was a separate title. Then you had the Falefa, which is Aho'eitu's other brothers. And then these are all the Kauhala'uta up to 1400 AD.
Kauhala, yeah.
And who are these titles still in existence today in Tonga?
Yeah.
And they who do they serve now?
Kalaniwalu. But the
Kalanivalu.
name, that's the Farefa over there, that's Aho'eitu's brothers. But
right here.
They Kalaniwalu, the Farefa today is changed the name. They are under Kalaniwalu.
And they changed it the same time Kalanivalu changed his name? Or did they change the Farefa's name before that?
That's when they make Kalaniwalu to be the head of Farefa.
Okay.
Because Kalaniwalu and Tupo the third, they come from the Queen Salote. They come from the Tu'i Tonga line.
Mm-hmm.
And in the modern days, for the nobles, and they make Kalaniwalu the noble of Moa.
So is Kalanivalu a descendant of the Tu'i Tonga then? The heir?
Yeah.
Okay.
Same line come with Queen Salote.
Okay. So Queen Salote, so give me some background. So Queen Salote, you said, comes from the Tu'i Tonga as well?
Yeah.
And why did they have Queen Salote?
Tupo the second, Tupoua,
Mm-hmm.
that's Queen Salote's father.
Okay.
From Tupoua to Queen Salote, Tupo Tolu, and Tupo Tolu to Tupo the fourth. That's Queen Salote's line. And our side is Tungi Mairefihi,
Mm-hmm.
his older brother. That's where we come on. Unga Papalangi.
Okay. And Tu'i Mairefihi, Masi was mentioning to me that is when they renamed the title for the Tu'i Hatakalaua, that's what they called Tu'i. Where does the title Tu'i come from?
That's from Tu'i Hatakalaua line.
Okay. So just like Kalanivalu got renamed for the Tu'i Tonga, the Tu'i Hatakalaua got renamed Tu'i.
Yeah.
Okay. And speaking about the Tu'i Hatakalaua, so at Ka'ulufonua, is this the first, Ka'ulufonua the first, where the Tu'i Takalawa comes into play. Kaulfonua created the Tu'i Takalawa. What's the story behind the creation of the Tu'i Takalawa? What was the thinking around it, and why did the Tu'i Tonga create the Tu'i Takalawa?
After their father got killed, Takalawa.
Oh, so this is Kaulfonua Fekai then.
Yeah.
So he created, and why was the thinking behind that? Was that to bring stability, or so their father gets assassinated,
Yeah.
right? And then the response then is by the next Tu'i Tonga is to create a second line of kings
Yes, to do the work.
to run the government, right? And do all that type of physical work on behalf of the Tu'i Tonga.
Look at the side, Tu'i Takalawa, and
Mhm.
that's the wharewa of the Tu'i Takalawa.
Yeah,
Whare pure malo, whare tui papai, whare whakawo, that's where your uncle named after.
that's
And
where
Hakiri.
Wo gets his name.
Yeah, that's the wharewas belong to the Tu'i Takalawa.
And I guess do we have any understanding as to, so I find that interesting that the Tu'i Takalawa is in many ways a response to the assassination of a Tu'i Tonga. And I'm wondering what the thinking was in the strategy. Was it, I'm just trying to understand what kind of benefit or what the thinking was to create a second line of kings. I understand to run like the temporal work, the physical work or the governing, and leave more of the cultural and the religious rights to the Tu'i Tonga.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering if this was a strategy to build more stability by decentralizing power, so that in the future, if the Tu'i Tonga was to be assassinated again, they had at least a second kingly line that, for all intents and purposes, was to help protect or maintain the Tu'i Tonga. I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud as to what would drive
That's divide
the power.
the work. It's too much for the Tu'i Tonga.
Okay.
That's why he make his brother to be another line for doing the work.
So we now have the Tu'i Takalawa who creates this new kingly line, and then a few generations later,
In
the 1500s,
yeah,
we have another kingly line, which is the Tu'i Kanokupolu, which is Mo'unga Tonga's one of his sons. Is this one of the younger sons? Or, because the Tu'i Takalawa line continues, but one of the sons, Mo'unga Tonga, they're anointed to be the Tu'i Kanokupolu. And Masi asked this question, and I didn't know the answer. And that was, what is this arrow, this ha'akiri from the Wharewa?
no,
Were
the
they
Hakiri, that's the wharewa of the Tu'i Takalawa.
Yes, but we have an arrow coming down here from Ha'akiri to Tu'i Kanokupolu to Ngata. And they
That's
have,
Mo'unga Tonga's son. And when they make the Hakiri, there's another that they take it in 1550. That's the Hihifo. They move them to Hihifo, to Kanokupolu, the Tu'i Kanokupolu.
did the Ha'akiri go with the Tu'i Kanokupolu to Hihivo?
Yeah,
Oh, okay. So that's where the arrow from up here is. The Ha'akiri comes down and goes with the Tu'i
Kauharana.
Kanokupolu. Okay. And then from there, the Tu'i Kanokupolu comes down to our current king today. So I guess my next question is this. What is Tupo the First's? Because according to the story that we understand, Ma'afu was the direct son of Areamotua, who was the Tu'i Kanokupolu. And I think it was Tupo the first uncle? Was his uncle Areamotua? Or what is Tupo the first's relation to Areamotua, the Tu'i Kanokupolu in Hihifo at the time?
The Tu'i Kanokupolu, it was the tribe, they decided who's going to be next. Tu'i Kanokupolu.
Oh, they actually voted who would be next?
Yes, because
Oh,
too many of them, the Ho'eki.
I did not know that. So the Tu'i Kanokupolu was not a father to son. It was voted?
Yeah, between the family.
Okay, so that's what George Vason saw. When he first came, he said he sat down and there was like a voting of who would be the next king. And he was basically seeing the vote of the Tu'i Kanokupolu. So the Tu'i Kanokupolu was an unusual setup then. They voted who would be the next king with the family, but the Tu'i Hatakalaua and the Tu'i Tonga was father to son, father to son.
Yeah. Because there's too many in the family. They had to vote. They have the head of every clan and they vote.
Interesting. I did not know that. That seems relatively close to how Samoa. Isn't that how Samoa runs their
I
stuff?
think so.
Yeah. And didn't the Tu'i Kanokupolu bring a lot of people from Samoa consistently to Hihifo?
Yeah.
Interesting.
The same thing. It was like that. The same thing with when they bring the daughter of the Tu'i Tatui, Whaea Tu'i Tatui from Hawaii. She bring a lot of family to do her work. Same thing with Tu'i Kanokupolu.
Interesting. I did not know that. So that's how Tupo the First was able to get in there, because they didn't run it, and sending Ma'afu to Fiji was just to eliminate a potential vote to him. And Masi was saying that Ma'afu's younger brother was sent to Samoa.
Yeah.
Interesting.
They go over there and big chief over there.
Okay. Interesting. I did not know that that's how the Tu'i Kanokupolu functioned. Very interesting. At what point did the Tu'i Kanokupolu started getting a lot of power? So it started around 1550. So it's a very young kingly line. Very young, because you're only talking like,
1550.
Yeah,
And
to now.
Morigi Hamed, 1799, when he was killed.
The last, yeah. So they came to power. I mean, the Tu'i Kanokupolu, for all intents and purposes, is very young. How were they able to gain so much power in such a short amount of time?
The thing is, when you do the work, and they didn't do anything by themselves. There's something you have some foreigners don't realize. They respect each other in our tradition.
Mm-hmm.
That's what happened in Tupo the First and Tu'i Tonga.
Yeah.
They didn't go fight. Their people do the fighting.
Yeah, because Tupo the First never came into Moa, right?
Yeah, when he left Moa, when he was older.
But I mean, he never, like, Tupo the first would go fight in Pea. He would go fight all over. But I'm not aware of any invasion into Mua.
Moa never have a kolotau.
Mm,
When they come to fight, they go around the Hake site, the Halariko.
mm.
They chase each other, never cross Moa.
And why is that? Is it just because of the Tu'i Tonga there and it being
Yeah,
sacred? And politically, it doesn't seem to make sense, right? If you go and cause trouble with the Tu'i Tonga, you may gather support against you. But this is very interesting to think about how young, and I didn't understand the structure and how the Tu'i Kanokupolu was a voting system, not a father to son. And then you said a very important part, and I think this is I like you said, you lose power when you don't do the work, right? With
yeah.
the Tu'i Tonga passing it off to the Tu'i Hatakalaua, the Tu'i Hatakalaua gets power and influence because they're doing the work. And then once they handed it off to the Tu'i Kanokupolu, they started the Tu'i Hatakalaua loses power because now the Tu'i Kanokupolu is the face of the empire, going around doing all the work. And
And they are closer to the people.
yes. And I think yes. And I think there's an important lesson there to be learned with today, right? And that is, when you give up responsibility, you're giving up power. And this is showing to be true even in America. The people, and except the power was given to the people rather than to a king, but the same principles still apply. The people, instead of maintaining the power with themselves, with the responsibility, they want to give it to the government. They keep giving the government to do the work, but when the government does the work, the government gets all the power. And I think that's what is a good lesson that we can learn, looking at how the kingly line passed it on, and why we shouldn't be afraid of work. The work is what gives you the power, and you should go out there and do the work. Don't delegate it, just like your rights. Don't leave the work that you should do, like, for example, to be a good person in your community, to go and help your neighbor, to go and do the work that needs to be done. Don't say, oh, let the government go do it, because when you let the government do it, guess who gets all the power? The government. I don't know. That just was an interesting thought that came to my head from this conversation, Dad. I don't know.
It's in Tonga, in every family. Rea pe ngawe.
Yeah.
Work is talking. The same thing in come to the Western style side, money talk.
Yeah. Because in many sense, money is supposed to be a representation of your work,
Yeah.
right? So I mean, I thought that's an interesting thing that I think, and this is also, let me ask you this question, Dad. Do you think that this is the mistake our brothers and sisters back in Tonga are making, when they expect the government to do all the work, when in reality, if they really want to have the freedom that they have, you need to go and do your own personal work. Don't rely on the government to do everything for you. If you want to have success, go and work on the land, go work on an education, go work on starting a business. I'm starting to see a lot of ideas coming up from people I know in Tonga. Every time there's a problem, they just want to blame the government. They just want to look at the government. And the government keeps trying to take more things to get involved with. And I know Tupo the Sixth just mentioned in one of his, I think, the speech to either close or open parliament, he was saying, hey, the government should stay out of the business that the free market can take care of better. I don't know. Any thoughts on that, Dad, to kind of close out? I think any ideas of what we've just covered through our ancestors over thousands of years, how the power moves from each kingly line, what kind of lessons that the younger generation today and our people can learn from, thousands of years of history that we just kind of covered.
You can see it in the family affairs. If you are the oldest son in a family and you don't do your job, if your younger brother do the work, the family is going to respect him more than you. That's why I always said you get your bread from the sweat of your head. That's the Bible.
Yeah. And there's a lot of history in the Bible that represents that, right? Many times, for whatever reason, the younger son is the one that God says that's the one that's going to go with the birthright for whatever reason. But a lot of it may be tied to what you're saying. Maybe the younger one was the one willing to do God's work. I don't know.
And you don't wait for someone to feed you, put spoon in your mouth to feed you. If you want to be free yourself first, you have to be free inside you when you do what you're supposed to do to help your family. You feel free inside you. And things come to you easy, the blessing, in many different ways. But if you about te kalo he ka venga, ka whainga maari e kalo i he hau ka koe. You have to work first to feed your face. Second, you can't help anybody if you can't feed
Help
your own
yourself.
face.
Yeah.
You can give hand when after you feed your face and something left, you can help someone with it. It's something some people don't realize that.
Yeah. No, I agree 100%. And I think there's a lot of lessons there. And coming back to the comment that you made earlier, Dad, we start to see the hand of Hikule'o or God in this now that we're having this conversation. So you have Tupo the first, born, like you mentioned, the same year Laufiri Tonga is born, the same year Christianity makes first contact with Tonga, right? Does that sound
Yeah.
correct to you?
Yeah.
Now, here's what's interesting. Laufiri Tonga, and we'll walk through this. Laufiri Tonga represents the beginning of the empire, right?
Yeah.
So he comes down to here, and where through the centuries and the thousands of years, there is a kingly line that's been prepared that has a unique system where they are getting the power because they're doing the work, but a system that will allow Tupo the first to access power. Because without the Tu'i Kanokupolu system, how else would Tupo the first be able to get into the Tu'i Kanokupolu line? Because he wouldn't have been able to, because if it was father to son, Tupo the first wouldn't have had the opportunity to become the Tu'i Kanokupolu. But because of his family blood tying to the Tu'i Tonga and the Tu'i Hatakalawa, it's all one big extended family. And with this new system of the Tu'i Kanokupolu that it seems like foreordained, that allowed him to get into power, that then allowed him to preserve Tonga overall. So once again, it seems like the same God that brought us, Hikule'o was probably saving our ancestors from something and brought us to the islands to protect us, is the same God that prepared a way and a system, as well as providing two people, Laufiri Tonga and Tupo the first, to protect Tonga. Because one thing I'm very convinced of now, after talking with Masi about this, Dad, Laufiri Tonga could have 100% stopped Tupo the first. all he had to do was just fight Tupo the First and cause trouble, and England was looking for an excuse. I really believe that we underappreciate Laufiri Tonga's choice to be peaceful, and not only to not fight Tupo the First, but to establish him and help him to be more successful as the future kingly line or the future leaders of our country. But those are just some closing thoughts from me, Dad. What are your closing thoughts? Any additional things to add from your end, and then we'll close the program for today.
I think the both of this was God prepare him,
Mm-hmm.
and his story about his life when he was a young baby, he was really sick,
Mm-hmm.
and they take him different places, try to cure him.
With no success.
Yeah, that's why they bring him to the Tu'i Tonga's priest, Kautai, and he cure him and call him Taufa Ahau. See, when they go to Taufa Ahau, just connect him to Waihi, to the
Yeah.
name, to be the priest and also king Ahau. And he grew up in Mua land a lot. When his time, they said they were fighting in Hapai.
Mm-hmm.
That's part of getting Tupo the First to be the head of Tonga. He can handle the rest. And that's why I mentioned it. 1797 is a big year for Tonga. And the Christian get into Tonga, and the two kings
We're born.
were born. That they both joined Christianity, Catholic, and Wesleyan Church. And our people don't realize how lucky we are.
Mm-hmm.
But it was Hikule'o or Jehovah do everything for us. And when you look at all the problem with the volcanoes, see all the way up to America, there were some people died from there. We don't have that many people die in Tonga.
There were two of them were tourists.
Yeah, and I think it was 3 people in South America died from the volcanoes.
Mm-hmm. That's a miracle that's all that happened.
Yeah, that's what the old folks used to pray and said, Pure Jehovah he otomotu. God is the boss.
Yep. We are definitely a blessed people, and I think we tend to forget that. And once again, appreciate the time, Dad. And I think this is a great opportunity for our people to learn more about our history, thousands of years of history that, let us remember that God has been keeping an eye on our people since the moment we arrived on the little islands in the Pacific Ocean. And with that said, I appreciate it very much. We thank everyone for watching. And if you have any questions, please reach out to us. We'll probably work on maybe getting some lives. One of the comments that we have received multiple times, Dad, is people sharing some questions. Maybe we'll find an opportunity to have a live program where we can talk about some topics and give an opportunity for listeners to ask questions and go from there. But I appreciate it very much. Thank you. And everybody have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.